introduce Sophie Foster, who's working in the studio, with the studio, obviously developing some of her own work here, but also I think going to be maybe doing like some drawing workshops.
Yeah.
So those will be
yes.
advertised. So that's brilliant, and having this show opening very, very shortly. So please try to sort of catch it over the coming week. Yeah, Sophie, thank you very much.
No problem. Yeah, so I'm one of the 4 AACA artists, and I was sort of asked to be involved in the sort of paper studio. I'm mostly drawing based originally, started going into more sort of installation, film, other types of media. I'm sort of, I guess, more interested in the sort of natural processing of things and using that as my inspiration and sort of developing it more. A few sort of examples. This is actually the sort of final year of my degree, when I'd leave out materials that would get totally absorbed by the sort of natural environment, and that sort of gave me the inspiration in a sense with the trying to figure out what was eating the paper, which happened to be snails, that I could then expand that. This is a performance I did later on in the year of snails eating paper, creating sort of marks on paper, and using it as a sort of visual documentation sort of way. So the sort of project that I want to sort of discuss and what I'm currently involved in has been started at the beginning of this year. The sort of main problem with my work is it's very seasonal, because I sort of work outside and things like that. But I came across, I've had this sort of fascination with nests and how they're constructed, and the different types of birds and how they just construct nests and why they do it. The perfect example is Satin bowerbird. I think it's an Australian bird that has this obsession with the colour blue. This way of trying to attract a mate, and creating this quite interesting, intricate structure. I quite liked the idea of the sort of man-made and the urban and the natural sort of landscape sort of working together. I came across a sort of another artist, Becky, I think that's how you pronounce it. She's from the Netherlands, and she documented coots nesting, and she'd leave out sort of very personal objects. She sort of discarded it with food for them so that they'd sort of take it. And she documented it through photography. They're sort of finished pieces, as it were. Which again, I found that quite interesting. And also it gave me the sort of insight that it can be done. I wasn't just going to be wasting my time for a year doing out things that it wouldn't work. One of the found nests I chose Jasmine Dean. Basically, I like how it was a sort of man-made structure in a sense, with Armstrong developing the sort of landscape, how it fits. It's very in a sort of urban environment. You can sort of walk out and you're in this sort of idyllic natural space. So I sort of chose that as to do most of my research, and also had the staff, the rangers, were very keen to sort of help me with my project, which was great. This is one of the found nests from last year, blue tit nest. You can sort of see the red, the man-made material that's been used, and we sort of pull nests apart, try and figure out what the sort of materials they'd use and things like that. And then how to sort of leave out the material. I wanted to make it quite like a sort of living. I work with sort of living sculptures, so the idea with the snails on the paper, it's constantly adapting, constantly changing over time. I like that sort of time element. So I was trying to think of ways to sort of, in case the sort of material is left out, this is like a sort of commercial nest that you can buy. But I like Alec Finley's work. From the Wild Iris Walk at Iris Brickfield, which is in Heaton, and he made more with structures for bees, like he'd make things out of books and things like that. And this is one of the sort of sculptural things you can see. I like how it sort of looks quite appealing, but it's also doing something for the environment, working with the environment. I decided to use plastic sort of bottles that had sort of been discarded that I'd find around the sort of Dean area and sort of adapt them so the sort of before the plastic bottle has a very sort of negative impact on the sort of natural landscape, but I sort of incorporated it. I like that you could see all the material inside as well. I became quite interested in that, and I thought it would show how the materials have gradually been taken away. It would show it quite nicely, and sort of another example there. I left it in the nature reserve, which is not open to the public, so I had a very brilliant space that I could work in, leaving cameras out because I wanted to film the process, using trail cameras that I could leave out for a certain length of time and then gather the film footage that I could then go through. You can see a little bird there, I think it's a coltip, but no, it's been filmed, so that's the sort of way I did it, and that's an example of the camera that I used as well. Used in a lot of sort of documentation, documentary sort of natural wildlife. So this is an example of a film still then. It was a sort of example of anyway, just a film, so some of the examples of the film that I'll be showing at the exhibition. I sort of put it all together over a couple of months, sort of edited it so it would be a sort of one sort of piece of the birds coming and going, and you could see the materials gradually taken away and the materials changing. I found the sort of, I would follow the birds where they go. It's an example of sort of the trail drawings. I did sort of continuous drawings on sort of long pieces of paper to try and document their sort of then going, coming back, and the sort of linear sort of movement they were sort of making. They'd always do the same sort of journey to and from, taking the material and coming back. It was very sort of ritualistic way that they would sort of move and take the material, they'd always sort of come back. I found that element quite interesting. Yeah, so this is a lot later on in the year, and you can see that it's all gradually sort of taken away, pulled apart. And I found this quite interesting. Took sort of many photos. I liked finding bits of my bits and pieces all about the Dean. Was quite interesting as a way to try and sort of figure out where they were going and why they were leaving certain materials and taking other types as well. I used some of the material to make monoprints from. Again, to sort of show, I like that sort of patterning, that idea of pattern on a surface, and I always find that quite interesting. Yeah, this is when I started at the banqueting hall. I chose the banqueting. I wanted to display the work in the same sort of setting as what I was working, where I was working in. And then the banqueting hall, the people there, which I don't know if many people know, is pretty much a ruin. It's not that much of it that's that intact, but it still sort of houses artists. They use it for sort of artist studios. And the only thing that's sort of covered is the staircase. So that's where they sort of exhibit a lot of work. And it's sort of, I sort of really wanted to sort of get to when I gather my nests together and sort of display them, I wanted to show like this communication between the sort of natural and the sort of unnatural. There's like plants coming out of the walls and things like that. You can see how it's gradually taking over this building. This was in one of the studios, and it's just a feeder that was left, but there's just this idea of the animal instincts. It's actually a mouse that's taken charcoal from the fire and placed it all the way around the feeder to mask the scents. I don't know whether sort of mouse could take it, but I just thought that was absolutely incredible. Just that very sort of simple structure that's sort of been created. And again, this sort of animal behaviour that I just thought was really interesting. This is another film still that is from actually inside one of the nest boxes that was used. So I got really good footage of the birds actually creating the nest and how they they use sort of their full bodies to create it, you know, especially with the blue tits, which they use very mossy, soft material that they can work their full bodies and mould it into a sort of another shape, which I thought was quite interesting. I read a lot from the Poetics of Space, Gaston Bachelard. But again, he had a chapter on nests, and he found them, you know, that sort of like that imprint of them. That was really interesting. So this is where I'm going to sort of just explain the work. I mean, we're turning the staircase into like an auditorium. So we will sort of sit on the stairs and view the sort of films of the birds, and I'll be placing the nests, the fowl nests afterwards, just sort of around, that people can sort of see and get to grips with. But I sort of like the idea of sort of discussion and things like that. So rather than me sort of sitting in the cold and vigilating, waiting for people to come in, I sort of organise sort of talks so people can come down and sit and listen to sort of discussions on the sort of subjects that I've been sort of interested in, and things like that really. I find that sort of more beneficial in the sense that I like people to be able to investigate the work for themselves, you know, ask questions about it, see things, and I think it would be a nice way to sort of do it. So yeah, this is one of my last images. This is one of the nests that I retrieved. This is from the aviaries, zebra finches. It was a lot easier for them to sort of see where they were going and travelling because they were sort of confined, but they created these really amazing pieces from the materials that I gave them. So that's going to be sort of on display so people get sort of like a close look at that as well. But yeah, so there's going to be a preview tomorrow from 6 till 8. So people will get the chance to see the work and the films, the nests, and I'll be doing talks on the night, Tuesday the 19th and Thursday the 21st, from sort of 3 p.m. It's just an idea to see sort of different ways of exhibiting pieces, and I think especially for sort of BA sort of year 2s that have like a professional development module that give them more of an idea on how to display work and how it can communicate with the space that you're given to sort of show. And then there's going to be, I didn't actually write it on there, but there's going to be a closing party on the 22nd, that's the following Friday, 6 till 8 again, which gives a chance for people to have see the films again before it closes. And that's it. If there's any questions.
I mean, I think.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah, I think it would be. I think we need to ask the questions when we've gone to the exhibition. We need to have a follow-up, really.
Yeah, I'd like to do sort of a follow-up. I mean, that's the thing. I've been working on this project for quite a while, so it's sort of this was always going to be happening, regardless if I got the sort of AA to A or not. But it's nice that I've been able to promote it just that little bit more. I mean, especially the banqueting hall that was used a lot by architecture students in the past, because it's a chance to see a building, how it's been built, because it's gradually, you know, eroding. You can see through the original brickwork and the plaster and the paint that's gone on, and how it's been sort of worked and lived in, and it's a very interesting space. And I sort of didn't want to put my full sort of, I didn't want people to have full attention on the work. I want to see how it fits in with the space, and I find that a very important aspect.
I mean, I've got one question, Sophie. That's what sort of prompted your decisions around which materials you placed where in order for the birds to collect? Because you know, it's like, I suppose it must be that balance of something, you know, becoming quite self-conscious in terms of the work.
It was very difficult to begin with because I didn't really have a lot going apart from the nests that had been found previously. I couldn't, because it's such a huge space, you know, and the nests are tiny, and you know, birds are such small things, and how you don't really know how far they travel. And it wasn't until I actually retrieved the nests that I realised how far they were actually travelling to get their material from. So it's a sort of work in progress. I guess next year I've got a lot more clues as to where they actually nest in, and I could leave materials they're in those certain positions so that they can take. I've done like a sort of grid point of where they've all been going and coming and things like that, and I find that you know, the idea of them going and then coming back quite an interesting, the routes that they're taking.
But say like that blue, obviously that blueness was extraordinary.
Yeah.
Would you choose a particular colour material, or what in terms of your own decision making? What
I couldn't.
What materials you're leaving for these birds?
I couldn't give them anything because I get into trouble.
Oh, you can't leave anything. Oh, right. Okay.
You know, you can't harm them. Because a lot of them do, they will take like plastic and things like that, and you're told you cannot use, you know, sharp things like that. I use very soft material. I knew that they, like blue tips were like very soft material, you know, cotton wool, bits of old like dishcloth or carpet or jumpers, fibres like that. I was actually given loads of things by people, this sort of man-made soft fibres, stuffing, even bits from like tennis balls and things like that that they'd take off. So I sort of went down that route, and it was interesting to see the different types of birds and what sort of material that they liked. Every species would prefer a certain material, which I thought was quite interesting.
How did you chart the drawing of the trail of the birds? How did you go about charting that? Was it?
It was very much. I did sort of like continuous drawings. I like looking at automatic drawings and things like that. I'd sort of sit and watch them and create sort of like a trail in that sense of where they were going, have a brief idea of what sort of direction they were going in and coming back. And there would sometimes be different, you can sort of see there's different sort of lines, like pencil line and pen line and things. I sort of associate that with the different species of birds. So there was normally a couple at once that would sort of come, and I'd sort of see one going in one direction, one going in another.
So they were like observed on site?
On site, yeah. I took a huge scroll of paper with me. So every time I sat, I would then go and then stop and then come back, continue the line. I sort of like, because again with me, I was going and coming back as well, so I wanted to sort of emulate that.
Anybody else have any sort of thoughts? I mean, I should have, to be honest, I should have reiterated that the sort of overall theme, or so to speak, of this year is ritual, performance and endurance. So this kind of fits. I'm a bit disappointed I haven't seen more paper being brought into these nests, but it's
again, it's sort of, paper is a very important aspect in terms of the drawing side of it. I mean, nests, I mean, but it's the idea of sort of material, isn't it? And how I sort of gather my information is I didn't mention actually, but afterwards the Banking are quite keen for me to create a sort of publication at the end of the week to document what I've been doing, and so I'm going to go into hopefully creating a small book that I can then show that will have information on the talks, sort of my sort of critical writing, but also some of my documentational sort of photographs and drawings as well. So that's sort of like my nest in a sense, gathering lots of different materials and turning it into this one final piece.
I thought there was quite an interesting kind of extended connection between nests and paper, which I examined a PhD in your area a few years ago, in a Korean woman who wrote her PhD was about the role of Korea as an innovative paper promoting culture between China, where it originated, and Japan, where it became later very important before it all sort of moved across to Europe. And she had somewhere in the early part of her thesis, she had a photograph of what's considered to be the earliest piece of paper in existence, and it's a sort of lump.
Right.
But underneath it says, could have been made by a wasp.
Right,
And it's that lack of, I mean, in a way, fabrication is trans-species, really, isn't it? And there's something about what you're doing that suggests that maybe the birds are making you make the art, as it were.
Yeah, I like to sort of...
I don't think you're doing those drawings on your own.
I always like to see myself as like the editor of like I set a situation up that then something else can then take over and create something for themselves.
Yeah, but maybe they've forced you into it in
Yeah.
some kind of very subtle way, you know,
Yeah, they probably have.
with their sort of flashy feathers, attractive flutterings. You know, you've been drawn into their creative process.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
But there's certainly an analogy. I mean, I'm just thinking about Agnes, your paper last week, and they kind of like this kind of pouring and just the kind of as a material object, a nest it does have that kind of sense of. I mean, I'm remembering some when you're talking about the Korean paper. I'm remembering some images that I saw of silk papers being made in a basket in the river and in Japan, and basically the silk fibers poured into the basket, dried in the sun, and it comes out. Surprise, surprise, looking like a silk nest. You know, and I think there is that kind of analogy in terms of the kind of the materiality and the kind of textural form.
Definitely.
So it's all very interesting, and I hope you can all, you know, take the time to go and have a look at the show, and maybe we could have a kind of follow-up session in a while, and we can sort of bring some thoughts and responses to the exhibition at that point. But thank you very much, Sophie. That was very interesting.